In this video, we're going to show you the periodic table, and we're going to discuss atomic numbers, atomic masses, and mass numbers. Okay, so we will not undergo a detailed discussion of that periodic table, but we will just talk about how to read the specific numbers in a periodic table. Okay, so now each element in your periodic table basically has two numbers. So let's kind of zoom in on this periodic table. So let's zoom in on iron, for example. So I'm going to zoom in out here. And if you look at iron, you have two numbers over iron. You have 26, and at the bottom, you have 55.845. Okay, it's important to understand what these numbers mean. So the number on top, the 26, is called atomic number. And the number at the bottom, the 55.845, is called the atomic mass. The atomic number stands for the number of protons in the element. I'm sorry, I messed that up a little bit. So let me just scratch out the R and rewrite it. Protons in the element. And by default, the number of protons is also equal to the number of electrons. Okay, so looking at the periodic table, just by looking at the atomic number of any element, iron in this case, you can deduce the number of protons. And then from there, since that's equal to the number of electrons, you can figure out the number of electrons. Now let's talk about the atomic mass. Okay, so the atomic mass, it's an average. Okay, it's an average of many different forms of this element. So right here, for example, in this periodic table, you can see the number 2 in parentheses to the right of the atomic mass. That number 2 means that there are two different forms of iron, and those two forms, the average of those two forms, give you this atomic mass, 55.845. Okay, now what are these forms called? So these two forms, they're called isotopes. Okay, so in a sense, there are two isotopes of iron, and they're actually the naturally occurring isotopes of iron, and those two isotopes are giving rise to this average atomic mass. So atomic mass is really an average, but what we see out here is we tend to call it only atomic mass, whereas in reality, it's an average. Okay, so the last number that we're going to talk about in this video is called the mass number. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back out a little bit, and I'm going to write mass number on top out here, mass number. And mass number is simply the number of protons plus the number of, I'm sorry, not electrons, the number of neutrons. Okay, for a specific isotope. So as you can see, it's very hard to kind of put the mass number on a periodic table, because each element, like iron, if they have more than one isotope, and usually that's the case, a lot of elements have many isotopes, each isotope would have to carry a different mass number. Okay, and so to kind of figure out each specific isotope, the number of protons, the number of neutrons, it kind of makes the periodic table very messy. Okay, so that's why you don't see it on the periodic table. Okay, so not found in the periodic table. And that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you for listening.